I think based on the age of teams and the drivers, this is going to be a real good rivalry for 5 or 6 years. Like both teams, Boston's been a great team for a long time. We're trying to get to that level, but the drivers of the team are like 27, 28 years old for us. So this is going to be a good one for a while.
Obviously very early, but just being 1-2 in the division as well, does that matter? Just in terms of adding a little bit more juice, maybe.
I think both teams feel. I mean, Boston's had, as I said, Boston's been a real good team for a while. We're just kind of coming into it, so I don't know how much the standings right now are in everybody's mind. It would be more a relationship based on the playoffs last year. That'll bring all the energy to the game.
Do you adhere to the whole Thanksgiving? If you're in, if you're in the playoffs by Thanksgiving, you're 80% shot or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean it's just a fact, right? Yeah. But it didn't matter. It clearly doesn't matter. You can get to the final and not be in. So there's, the underlying reason for it is that maybe 3/4 of the teams that are above that bar happen to be really good hockey teams, and that's probably not going to change very much. I still feel that we're early on to establishing ourselves as one of those teams. It doesn't mean we lack confidence. We don't have 5 years of it yet, right? So we've kind of still trying to prove it every day.
Do you have any update on Barkov?
Yeah, he's getting better. I mean, he's possible for Winnipeg. He won't play tonight, but there is a possibility he plays against Winnipeg, and this will all be medical if he's cleared. I mean, if he's at a percentage that we don't like, then we're just going to wait until he's right to go back in. If he goes back in, he'll go back in at 100.
Has he been skating or
Yeah.
anything? Okay, he's skating. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at tonight, goaltender coach.
Sergei plays, yeah.
Defensively, we know Ekblad and Montour bring in the back end. But in terms of how they're affecting the offense, whether it's the zone entries, the breakouts, just what have you seen from that so far in terms of maybe how it's changed the look of the team just through 2 games?
Well, I think that's the biggest impact. I won't say necessarily offensively, but clearly you would have video of Montour and Ekblad both moving in the offensive zone. So I know that it does. We have kind of this expected amount of quality of defensive play, and that we would take that first. That's the most important driver. It's the breakouts. It's a right-handed shot. So if you just put 2 right-handed defensemen in that hole, they're going to move the puck differently, possibly more efficiently than a lefty will. It's a tough place to move the puck on your backhand. So they came into the game, and the difference between being a really good breakout team and a really poor breakout team isn't that much. It's 1 or 2 breakouts a period, right? Even 1 a period will move you to the top half of the league. So, I mean, you can just visualize plays that happened on the ice where they turned on the right side and put it on somebody's tape and we're out. And so it's not like we're going now, we just don't spend any time in our end, because there's just 1 breakout a period by each one of them, and we would be a good breakout team.
What has surprised you about this Boston team, considering the number of roster changes they've had from last year's playoffs?
Probably nothing, in truth. Because the 2 important centermen also didn't play against us in the first 4 games, and they're a pretty darn good team. It took us a while to get the style of game figured out. So I think they look almost exactly like we remember them. Now they got the young centerman in the 3-hole, that's new. But for the most part, it feels like the style of game is still the same. Where they're dangerous, I think, is still the same. So they look like they did in the playoffs last year.
2 defensive questions. Just how much does length impact D-zone coverage in terms of stick wingspan? Just being able to take away or eliminate some of those seam passes, or just...
Yeah, there is a level of talent that has to go to that length, but it's kind of preferably you'd always take a longer guy over a shorter guy, but the talent may even that out. There are long defensemen who have a bit of a Bermuda Triangle in here, and that's not a good thing. And then there's long defensemen that are agile enough that they can close those gaps. So for penalty killing, and depending on the style of D-zone coverage that you have, it'll help you. So ours is different than Boston's. But we can get Ekblad's stick out and push a guy who takes everybody for a skate and still be in really good shape with that because of his length. But there's some really effective defensemen, especially that don't have long sticks, but it's just they make up for it for feet. If you don't have the length, you have to be able to skate.
So could you ever sell the concept to your Ds? Could you play with as long a stick as possible?
I believe in that. I believe in play with the longest stick as possible.
Huh.
But some guys' stick have to be very short because they can't play with a longer stick. My dad was big into that 50 years ago. Play with the longest stick as you possibly can. It makes complete sense. And then, like some of the great stick handlers truly do use incredibly. It's a marvel how they can. Eric Stahls that we had here, he could score from out there, and very few people could because he used a long stick and he was physically strong enough to do it. Yeah, I believe in that. But the qualifier is binary. It's either a yes or a no. You can either use the stick or you can't. So you'll use as long as you can, but don't use a long stick if you can't.
Pregame, I know you've been asked this a ton, but how important is Matthew's presence as a tone setter for your team?
Yeah. I'm just trying to quantify it. I don't know that I can. It's especially important because it's different than most other players. What I think the strength of the Florida Panthers is last year and this year is the uniqueness of each player. We've got some unusual cats in there. And I didn't even realize that was a pun. We've got some unusual players in there. And Matthew is just as unique as the rest of them, right? He's a power forward, can be physical, wildly skilled, really, really creative on the ice. But if there's a scrum, there's a fairly high percentage chance that he's involved in it, right? So we need a little bit of that because we have other players that aren't. And I don't want those other players to be like that. I want Matthew to be Matthew and the other guys just to be themselves and bring their strengths. So Matthew's important in that department because he leads in that department.
Does his game remind you at all of his father's? I covered his father in high school. That's
Yeah.
what I ask.
I mean, there would be the idea of probably 10 feet around the net, right? The hands are just, and his brother's got it too. Some of the goals they score, some of the things they do with their stick, there's just nobody else doing that. So there is that kind of family uniqueness, if you will. There are some similarities for sure. Both heavy guys on the ice, right? They weren't probably winning the fastest skater contest, but they'd be pretty close to the top 10 in scoring every year. Okay, guys.
Thanks, Coach.
All right.